tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's RBLR Sports.
Hello, everyone. I am here today with Andres Arango, a former player for the Tampa Bay Rowdies who has moved into coaching. This will be the first in our series of players along those lines. So, Andres, I usually start every one of our podcasts with a simple, how are you? And, we were talking a little bit. Just tell everybody how things are going.
Hey, James. I'm doing well. Like I said, I've been very busy. Coaching has definitely taken a huge part of my life right now. People who are coaches out there know that it requires a lot of time, dedication, and passion. So I'm enjoying it, loving it right now, but definitely a lot of work and a lot of learning to do. But it's been a good journey so far.
That's awesome. I can imagine, obviously, that being a lot of work. But before we get into that, please follow RBLR Sports on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Obviously, like and subscribe to our podcast on all major podcast platforms. We are at RBLR Sports. Before we get into the coaching a little bit more, let's back it up and go through your background and how you got into soccer. If you could talk about that and tell us how you got into the sport originally.
Well, I'm originally from Colombia. Born in Colombia, Medellin, Colombia, and it's within us. My dad played semi-professional soccer down there, and got an early injury. But I just remember when I was just very young, just being around a soccer ball all the time. We were actually then sent to Toronto, Canada, through asylum, through the Pablo Escobar era. My dad's company were having some issues, and we were sent to Toronto for 8 years until everything settled down in Toronto. I was a Spanish kid that didn't know how to speak English, who expressed myself by playing soccer, and everybody was really amazed with my soccer skills. My parents would tell me, and that's what I would use to kind of make friends. And that because going as a child from Colombia to Toronto without knowing English, and my parents don't know English, it was tough. I mean, not that I remember it, but I remember as I got a little older, where my English was struggling, but my Spanish was struggling as well, because you haven't learned either language. Writing it,
Yeah,
you're new to both. So I struggled a little bit with that. But as I went along, I became Duolingo, English, Spanish. I can speak both of them very well. And then with how that comes back to soccer is, as I was able to speak, I knew more about the game, and communicating that to the players around me made them better. In Canada, soccer is not a huge sport. Not when I was there. It was growing, slowly growing, but there was a lot of immigrants coming in there. And now, as I was able to speak it, I was able to teach it, and that's how I love coaching as well. I remember helping my teammates by explaining situations that happened that they're just not aware of. I mean, it was weird seeing that, but soccer became just a part of my every single day life, more than school. I was looking forward to just leaving school like I did in Colombia, and go play games. I was fortunate enough to play under some really good club teams in Toronto, North York, Missouri, Woodbridge. We had Vaughan, a lot of good clubs. Those are very top clubs right now, and I was actually scouted for the national team at U15. That was about when our 8 years were about to be up to go back to Colombia. And the national team say, hey, we'll get you a citizenship. That way your parents can get citizenship, and you'll stay here in Canada. And my parents have not left Toronto ever since. So
wow.
we were very fortunate, and that's my story to soccer, and that's why I want to give back to football, because it gave my family an opportunity to escape that life in Colombia, which a lot of families don't get to do.
That's an incredible story. I mean, I am just familiar with your background based on what's online, but that is a lot more, obviously, than I would have ever known. And I'm honestly blown away by that. You said the youth national team helped you guys kind of stay around in Canada, and if I'm not mistaken, you were part of the World Cup team back then, and might have played with some big Canadian names.
I never made the full men's national team. I played in the under-20 World Cup. I was part of the U15 roster. I played for the U18 national team. continued with the U20s, and was fortunate to go to the World Cup. You got to imagine this was 2003, and this is when the war was going on, and the World Cup was going to be in Dubai, in UAE. So in March, they ended up canceling it because of the war, and I'm like, this is going to ruin our opportunities. We're not going to get to play this World Cup. Luckily, they postponed it till December. We were able to watch all the qualifying games because we had qualified already, but South America still qualifying, and we wanted to see the teams we play against. So we were, I was watching South America a lot because Colombia, I'm from Colombia. I want to see if they made it. I mean, good teams.
Sure, sure.
Brazil made it, Colombia made it, but we ended up drawing Brazil in one of our group stage. We had Brazil, Czech Republic, and Australia. And I remember watching Brazil. I'm like, oh, I think I watched them. I remember them. They were good. They went to the World Cup with a completely new team.
Oh, really?
And still made the finals. All right, and so it was crazy. But in that World Cup, we played Brazil. I mean, who was there? Dani Alves played. He was the right back for them. Neymar was there. We ended up making it out of our group stage. We played Burkina Faso in the quarterfinals. We beat them 1-0, and then found ourselves against Spain in the quarterfinals. So that was the round of 16 with Burkina Faso in the quarterfinals with Spain, and Andres Iniesta was part of that team. You had Sergio Garcia. So, I mean, Iniesta scored a goal against us. We took him to double overtime. We thought we were going to be the Cinderella story. But they were just too good at the end. They beat us in double overtime, 2-1. But it was a great experience for me. That was probably the top of my career. It's the experience that we went through, and just to see that kind of level of soccer being played. And I can tell you right now, I was not a great soccer player. When we did our role. We knew our role. Compared to those guys, we had a job to do. It was defend. You know, I mean, I barely wanted the ball, but it was an experience for me that soccer just goes a long way, and there's so much more work to do as individuals. So, but it was exciting. It was like I said, top of my career.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I think that everybody listening will be familiar with those names. So that's really amazing that, you know, as you said, you can put it together, even if you don't consider yourself necessarily the top player, that you can put yourself into a team and work together to take a team like Spain with those kinds of stars to double overtime there. But one other thing that I wanted to touch on before we got to your club career, I think on that team as well were a couple of big Canadian names that came into the national team later on, like Ian Hume and Atiba Hutchinson, if I'm not mistaken. What were they like as players?
They're two of my best friends, two good friends. We always keep in touch. Atiba Hutchinson's still playing. He's been one of those guys that I get emotional because to see him there and going to a World Cup this year, you know, making it to the World Cup, which is something we've all wanted to do, you know. So he's representing us, you know. We've talked about it, and he's just a true professional. The way he lives his life is just a true, you know, and it's why he's made it for so long. You know, it's just he's so disciplined. And it's hard to explain a player like him, you know. There's nothing crazy special about him. It's just the discipline. He's at the right place at the right moment. His communication. And he just knows the game in and out. And Ian Hume, he scored some great goals for us in the past. He's had a great career. Tranmere Rovers. He scored probably 90% of our goals at the World Cup under 20. I mean, the goals, if you guys go look up Canada under 20 World Cup on YouTube, you'll see some great goals from Ian Hume. He's a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Very good guy too.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. As someone who has been following the World Cup qualifying, I mean, personally, I like to see all of CONCACAF do well, in addition to, you know, supporting the U.S. where I'm from. But Yeah, I do think that Atiba Hutchinson and Canada overall are among the fairy tale stories for the whole of World Cup qualifying. But yeah, that's really cool to hear. I love that.
Yeah,
But
the sport has changed so much up there. Like I said, when I arrived, there was no soccer, and all those guys that grew up with me playing, they're like the pioneers. They're in the system. They're with Toronto FC. They're with Canada Soccer. So they're keeping the game alive, and they're doing well, and it's showing.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the last thing I wanted to cover before we get into the transition to coaching, something that you just mentioned, is if you could walk us through your playing career and all of your time at the different clubs in Canada and the United States, and then obviously your final stop with the Rowdies.
Okay, well, I mean, my pro career started pretty early, 18. I had the opportunity to go to college. I was going to school in Toronto, and I didn't know much about the college game in the States. It was started to get big, but didn't know much about it. Didn't know that you could pretty much get a 4-year degree and everything. So I went to college, small college in Toronto called Humber College for like, I actually made it just 3 semesters. Played with the soccer team, won the national championship, won MVP, one player of the tournament, and I'm like, I'm not doing any work at all. Just skipping classes. I'm like, this is not for me. This is not for me. Although
Yeah.
I had letters from UConn, Maryland, Syracuse. I went to visit all my visits there as well. They all wanted me to do a community college to then transfer. And my parents wanted me to continue with school. So I ended up going to Mercer Community College in New Jersey to try to do that for a year and then transfer to the UConn or Maryland, who were very interested in me at that moment. And then played for Mercer. We went to the national championship, won MVP again. And just in my head, I'm like, I'm just soccer's for me. But school wasn't. I chose at that moment I'm gonna retire. Actually, that's when we went to the World Cup. So I was gone for about 6 months out of the year for the college career. So missing school, the teachers were giving me assignments that I could pass just so that I could get that grade and keep playing soccer. They're pulling strings for me. It wasn't for me. That's when I decided that I would. After the World Cup, I decided I'm going to play pro. I had a couple of teams that were interested in me. Montreal Impact gave me the opportunity first. Being Canadian, they like to take the chance on younger guys. I was there with the other Canadian on my team was Jason DiTullio. And just a quick word to Jason because he just got diagnosed with brain cancer and we're just pulling strong for him as well. But I played with him in Montreal and we started there. Montreal gave me a chance. I didn't play 1 minute that year, not 1 minute. Actually, I came on in overtime in Toronto for like 30 seconds so that I can say hi to my family and then the game finished. So that was tough for me. I'm like, well, I've been going from winning everything to not getting a single minute. Luckily for me, Toronto was still very interested, and they said we want to do a trade. Toronto sent their best player, and they got me. At that moment, they had a lot of trust in me, and they wanted me to be like they wanted to build the team around me. Turns out the next year, Montreal wins the championship. The guy they traded for is MVP. He's the top player. And then we with Toronto, we had a good season. I won Defender of the Year, but that trade kept me in Toronto for 3 years, and I played 3 years in Toronto. I captained them my last year, won Defender of the Year 3 years in a row. Montreal came back and said, "Hey, we want you back." I followed the money. Went to Montreal. Didn't play much. Had a couple of games here and there. Didn't play a lot, and then they released me, and so that was tough. I ended up in Minnesota. I did a couple of tryouts in Puerto Rico. I went to actually Puerto Rico was the only one. Puerto Rico, and I went to Orlando for a little bit, and then I went to Minnesota, with Amos McGee and what's his name? What's the other guy? I can't remember his name, but I got there. They were very fond of me. Um, Offered me a very good contract. Little to my knowledge, I didn't know Minnesota was actually higher north than Toronto on the map. I thought I was always going down south to America. It was much colder than I thought it was going to be. But I enjoyed my 3 years in Minnesota. I had a great 3 years, captained the team as well there. Um, while in Minnesota, I met my wife. She's been an amazing person to me. We've been married 10 years now. And I got engaged to her, but we were planning a wedding in Florida because families from everywhere. Toronto, she's from England, Colombia. We don't want to fly them to Minnesota in the winter. It had to be in the off season.
Sure.
So we're like, let's plan it in Florida. So I'm making these arrangements at Sanibel Island, and Tampa Bay Rowdies calling me. We had played them during the season. I actually remember one game. They were at the Tampa Stadium, and first time being here, I actually got into a fight with Carl Valentino, I think it was, and the head coach.
Oh yeah.
And Perry Vanderbeck was there, and we got into a scuffle in the tunnel. Me and the coach, and I was like, "Oh, my chances of coming here are done. There's no way I'm gonna make it." That year, they fired the coach. Dalglish. It was Dalglish. So now that's coming to mind. And they fired the coach, and Perry Vanderbeck calls me and says, "Hey, we want you here next year. What are the possibilities?" And I said, "I still have an option here. Can I make it work? Like, we'll make it work. We'll find a way to get you here." And Perry got me here to Tampa, and I haven't left since. We won. We had a good 3 year. I had a good 3 years with them. The second year was 2012, and we won the championship with Ricky Hill. Some great players on that team too, but it wasn't a team of superstars. It was a team of hard workers. No, like a couple of big names, but not really. I mean, we had Frankie Sanfilippo, a hard worker who moved around from team to team as well, but was always the top player. Me as well. I moved around from team to team, but always a top player. It was made up of guys like that, and we just found a way to click together. And that year was an incredible year. We beat Minnesota, my old team, in the finals. Yeah, again, that was another top of my career. You don't get to win many championships, and so you always take
Right.
you. Yeah, and I was still young. I wanted to keep playing. Unfortunately, Tampa was not in the right time to kind of, offer more money or anything like that. And actually, nothing against them. During those times, they had to make pay cuts, and they couldn't afford everybody. So they were trying to trade me back up north to Ottawa. And my wife and me were like, we're not going back. So I retired then and there, and we're staying in Tampa. We're making this our home, and haven't left ever since.
Wow, again, this is all, this is kind of the behind the scenes stuff that I think a lot of fans don't get to hear about when, all they get more so is the announcement. Oh, we've made a new signing, and you don't really know all the stuff that goes into it. That's such a cool part of learning all of this.
No, it is. It's I like giving that insight as well. I mean, yeah, I'm a quiet person. I stick to myself. I'm not a lot of social media, but I like to give a little insight in terms of how I got here, because it's different for everybody. Everybody's journey is different, and sometimes there's luck involved. Sometimes there's connections involved, and you need a little bit of both. It's not always doesn't always come down to your abilities. It's sad, but if you're lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and you have the ability, you have a pretty good shot.
Right. That's well said. Something that you had mentioned earlier that I want to bring us back to now, you said that you wanted to give back to soccer for everything that it's given to you. Is that something that you knew all along, that you wanted to move into coaching afterwards?
Yes, I've coached. I've always coached. Like as a 16-year-old, I was very involved with the camps that were being held. And I was the better player. So they wouldn't use me as, hey, you want to come to the camp? No, do you want to coach in the camp? You want to help out with the kids in the camp? At 16, 15, I would help out with the younger kids because I was able to do that. And ever since my parents got that citizenship, I wanted to give back to soccer. Soccer was our out. It was our out. It gave me opportunities. It was it was what saved my family. It was so. And like I said, it was put there for a reason because I was horrible at school. I was not. I couldn't focus. I didn't like. I passed every class, but I wasn't dedicated to it. So I knew soccer was always going to be part of my life. And as I got older, I always participated in these camps. I coached younger kids. Um, I've always wanted to start from the bottom, so I did like soccer shots. I did 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did boys and girls to kind of get the experience to see if I really wanted to do it. And yeah, I always loved it. Never had a negative feeling about it. It doesn't even feel like work to me. It's for me to give the experiences that I have and have learned, and now more so as a coach, like seeing why I did things as a player and be able to teach it is huge. And if you can do it to kids at 12, 13, because soccer's the same. It's if you're able to just explain it, teach it, get kids to see it the way they see it, but guide them in the right direction. Because I think kids, and when I coach, I ask questions. I won't tell a kid what to do. I'll ask them a question, and what do you think? What would you do in this situation? What would you do in that scenario? And I mean, kids are just smart. Their ideas are not right or wrong, right? But it's what they saw, and they saw it for a reason, and now maybe they adapt to that situation. And that's how I felt like I learned the game. It was always on my own guy, because I couldn't understand coaches, what they were saying to me in English. I didn't understand. I just played the game how I saw it. So I made my decision. Coach might have said something to me, but I didn't understand him. But I fixed the situation the next time I saw it. I didn't pass the ball there because there was a defender there. I went the other way. I didn't dribble because I lost it. But coaches now would just tell you, don't dribble. Or, no, like, oh, why did you lose? Why did you lose the ball? Oh, because I dribbled. Okay. Doesn't mean you can't dribble. You can dribble. Just find the right moments. So I mean,
Right.
just going back to why I mean, that's how I learned the game in terms of letting kids make their own decisions and showing them that they're not wrong, but you can fix certain situations. I think I had that from when I was younger, and just always being a teacher. And like my wife's a teacher, and we have similar qualities. And she's like, you're a really good teacher. I'm like, I never thought about it that way. I'm just a soccer player. I was just consider myself a soccer player. So now that I'm a coach, definitely different than playing. Not all players can be coaches, um, but I was lucky to see the game in a different way when I was younger.
That's yeah. I wonder along the way, were there any coaches that kind of, obviously you said that sometimes you didn't even understand them, so you had to kind of learn the game on your own there. And that sounds like it has impacted the way that you coach. Are there any coaches who gave you specific ideas for how you want to go about this once you got to this point in your career?
Every coach that I had throughout my life, I'm talking about now once I became a little older. So I'd say about 12 years old and up. Before that, that's when my English was bad. I didn't understand much. I played the game on my own, but every coach that I had from 12 and up played professionally in some aspects. So I remember my 12-year-old coach played professional for Uruguay, played for the World Cup in Uruguay, Jorge Armua. So the stuff that he taught you was incredible. Just like I said, when you play the game, you see things a certain way. You don't necessarily know how to teach it or explain it, right? But even just having those people around that coach, just by what he's saying, it slowly starts sticking with you. And you start recognizing it as you get older. So he was from Uruguay. He spoke Spanish. I was able to understand him. I had another coach, Carlos Rivas, when I was 15. Played pro in Chile, played for the Chile national team. Made it to the 1982 World Cup, I think it was, or I'm right. But again, knowledgeable guy. Um, so the information was getting was legit information. Wasn't some guy trying to be a coach who didn't know anything about the game, who wants to learn,
Right.
but is learning. These guys lived through it in that era, in that time. So I learned a lot from them, those two guys. And then again, after that, it was then I went pro in the World Cup, and then so I was always in an environment where you were around professionals that play the game. So I was very lucky. You know, there's kids that don't get that, or being coached by different people every single year, but that never played the game. So, and I love that, you know, because we need more people like that. But I recognize that there's a lot of work to be done, you know, in terms of making sure the kids are getting the right opportunities. And we don't do that enough here in Tampa because we're fighting for players. Everybody wants players here, here, here. If everybody was under one umbrella, Tampa Bay Rowdies, academy down, we would be the best team in the country. I guarantee we have the best players here in Florida.
That's really interesting. I was listening to Cindy Parlow Cohn, excuse me, who is the president of the federation, the whole U.S. Soccer Federation, and you know, she had a list of 4 mandates that she had given herself, and some of them were like referee retention, that kind of stuff. One of them was also the fact that there are all of these different youth leagues, and she called it the alphabet soup, that there are, you know, there's the ECNL, and then there's MLS Next Pro, and there's all of these different things. And, you know, the fact that there are all of these different leagues possibly means that people are stepping on each other's toes as opposed to actually helping each other out.
Yeah, and like I said, I came here to Tampa and started coaching, and I was lucky enough to be with MLS Next, which is one league. You stick with it. You know, with the Chargers, I was there for 10 years. But I didn't know anything about all these leagues. I mean, the Sunshine Coast League, this and that, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is ridiculous. And even now, I'm not educated.
Yeah.
Now that I'm at Florida Premier, and we're ECNL, and there's ECNLR reserves and NPL, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. How are we supposed to keep track of players? How do we? Yeah, it's just a big mess. Everybody's just competing. There's no. It's sadly all about money, I guess. And being the best, but like, and I know the Rowdies, it's tough for them. We need an umbrella under a pro team, you know, like every MLS team, or if they can support that, the best players automatically will go there because that's the pathway to the pros. The best players will funnel into there, and then now all the other players will go to the teams that should be developing players. You know, all the clubs that's what they're there for, to develop players. Now, the better players, we send them to the academy. You know, and it should funnel that way, and that's how it works all over the world. I mean, it's how it is, you know, and that's why in the States it's just too big of a country, and everybody's in it for greed.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately that does come into play more than anybody would like. One more question that I have specifically about development. You know, you come from a Hispanic background, obviously, even though you moved to Canada as opposed to America. There are a lot of people in America who would say, myself included, that, you know, a lot of Hispanic children unfortunately get left out of get left out of all of these opportunities. Maybe there isn't proper outreach, maybe there isn't proper scouting, all of that kind of stuff. Now that you've lived here for the time that you have and have coached here for the time that you have, what have you seen, you know, between our clubs here and reaching out and into the Hispanic communities?
I haven't seen it, to tell you the truth. I haven't seen that at all. I was with MLS, the Chargers, MLS Next, and that's $3,800 a year. How are you going to afford that? My parents would never be able to pay that. And lucky for me, I had my managers who would pay my season charges, or, you know, registration, because they wanted me to play. You know, I was lucky. Now in Canada, they have Excel programs, they have opportunity, they have all these funding, and again, they're under one pathway. Everything is under one path. I haven't seen it here. Everybody, I've moved to Florida Premier, and I was amazed about how many Latinos there are at Florida Premier. And I was like, "Whoa, okay, well, this is a change. This is good. The good players too, very good players. A lot of them, yes, are helped scholarship-wise, but then a lot of them do come from, I mean, a little bit wealthier families. You know, I mean, that have made a living for themselves here. that have third generation now kind of come in. But you go to these Spanish leagues, you go to these Cinco, and you see a kid just kicking the ball, and you're like, this kid, we need to focus on this kid. He's 8 years old. He's kicking the ball better than the adults are. Where is he playing? I mean, no, we don't know where he's playing at, and it's weird. It's for me, it's not. We're not doing a good enough job. Or how do you even provide the funding for them at a club? I get it. I mean, we need to find the sponsorships and stuff for that, but and the education's not there. The Spanish communities don't know that these teams exist. It's tough. I haven't seen any involvement with it, so I would like to see a couple of programs being put out there where, I see these little 5v5 fields being built in other states, specifically for soccer.
Yeah.
Specifically for soccer, and you can make that, say, a U.S. soccer facility, and the kids just go in there. And now we'll go scout there. Those are the ones where you're going to create soccer players. You're going to force them to be involved in these environments where they just got to get better with the ball. And I mean, just putting these little soccer fields area caged in where it's safe, friendly, nice looking, nothing that's going to be used. Because I get you get a lot of them we get vandalized and stuff like that. But we got I don't know. I'm probably speaking out of reach here now, going into the city limits and stuff like that. But we need just more of that, giving them more opportunities to see what we're doing and providing the funds for them, I think. But it's hard. I get it. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, it's obviously, one of this is easy. Fortunately, we are, that I think a lot more as ideal, but I appreciate everything that you said there, because as someone who, I grew up playing for Hillsborough County United, which I think was the predecessor to Tampa Bay United, and all along I was coached by my dad, who actually similar to you in a way. He moved from Scotland to Canada and then came down here as well. But
Okay.
yeah, he he was my coach for several years, and then it was kind of just making sure that we're in the area that we need to be, but not necessarily with all the different clubs that are going on. And at that time, there wasn't the Rowdies either. So yeah, it's definitely difficult when there are all of these different competing interests and all of them in different leagues. And then on top of that, you have this funding issue and this outreach issue. I think that there's a lot, obviously, that needs to go into fixing the youth game. But your perspective has been super, super helpful for me as, like I said, someone who is out of it. But just one last thing now. I think we've covered a ton of ground here, but is there anything else that we have missed? Anything else that you would like to say for the listeners about, anything at all?
I mean, I'll just go back to like the players that we have here in Florida. I mean, I was coaching the U19s at MLS Next at Chargers, and so many players have gone out to schools, and now that we have like USL2 teams, this UPSL teams that kids can come back to, they're not staying away. We got to build programs here, or even the Rowdies, like I said, something where these guys get to come back, because we have such amazing players here in Florida. And the moment they leave here to go to college and we have nothing to offer them here, they just stay up north and they're playing for Chattanooga, or instead of playing here for the Rowdies or playing for our teams here in Florida. And I call it our teams now because this is my home. I mean, Rowdies created an opportunity for me. I want to give back to them as much as possible. I mean, I wouldn't say that maybe never. Maybe I'll coach the Rowdies one day. I would love to coach the Rowdies one day. That's a goal of mine as well. But, just being able to produce these players. Right now, they have a couple of academy players who are with them. You have Santiago Castaneda, who's with Florida Premier, who I'm coaching at currently. And, I mean, but those are the opportunities these kids need. And I think Coach Neil Collins is doing a great job of getting them involved, and more so. But it's still not enough. We need more programs. The U23s for the Rowdies, which I was supposed to coach, and then COVID hit. That was an opportunity that I was
right
to do that. The work that I had done to contact the players, the team that we were building was incredible. Like it was going to be an incredible team. And then COVID hit and Rowdies pulled the team. And so now that team belongs to Tampa Bay United, and now I have no involvement with that, which is hard because it was kind of like my baby. It was like, hey, you know what? This is going to be great. I can build this,
Right.
So it's tough. Like I said, we're all competing here. I mean, I don't see it as competing. I have great relationships with all the clubs. TBU, I mean, Brian Johnson is a great guy. I don't see it as competing. I see it, we're all doing the same thing. And if we're doing the right thing and you're doing the right thing, the players will stay wherever they're happy. And we don't need to go chasing players. Just do the right things and players are going to stay where you are. Or if you're doing the wrong things, they're going to look for better opportunities, So if we can all do the right things and stay just humble and help each other out. I mean, I will send a kid over there who lives closer to there. Why make him drive 2 hours? No, just go play over there. I mean, it doesn't make sense, if they're getting the right coaching, if they're in the right environment. So it's getting better in Florida, and it's good to see. The competing helps, but there has to be a way to come together, because the competing has made us stronger, has made us fight, has made us compete, and recognize that you do have to win to get better. But now we need a tipping point where everybody comes together, and now we're competing against the rest. It doesn't make sense to just keep competing against each other for no reason.
Right. That's yeah, that's very succinctly put.
Everybody gets the same amount of players the following year. I mean, you might suffer a little bit. You're going to be around. Kids are going to keep coming through the system. But you're competing here, you win something, and then the following year, it's the same thing. You do it over. But what are we doing it for? It's to develop players, to get players better, to make them have a better experience, a better life. So we're pretty much doing it for the same thing.
Gotcha. Well, Andres, that's all of the questions that I had prepared. So thank you very much for taking the time. We'll have to have you back for everything that we discussed today, but that was wonderful. I appreciate you taking the time for this.
No, thank you, James. I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me an outlet. It's good to, like I said, I like to just share my experiences. That I'm sure there's a lot of kids that have gone through similar experiences and can use this somewhere or another to keep pushing forward.
Absolutely.
All right, James. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.